We've got a live stream. Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Kasia Makowska, and I am the president of Polonium Foundation. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you at today's event. As you might know, Polonium Foundation is an organization that usually brings together Polish research diaspora. That's the group we support predominantly, and usually the Career Café events are aimed at this group more specifically, and at members of our networking platform, Polonium Network. So we would usually chat about career advice or have discussions on subjects related to self-development. And actually, before we jump into today's discussion, I would just very quickly like to mention the next event that we are planning. Let me share my screen again very quickly. So this will be in 2 weeks, on the 14th of June. It will be in Polish, and the title is Międzynarodowa kariera w polskiej firmie z branży life science. Please check it out if you are interested. I believe my colleagues might be able to share a link, a registration link in the chat. But today, of course, is different. For today's event, we have teamed up with organizations, with different research organizations and voluntary organizations to speak about researchers at the time of war. In light of the Russian aggression on Ukraine, and to speak about our role, our organizations, and the role of academic community more broadly in offering support and solidarity. We have a lineup of brilliant speakers for you today, and we have a saying in Polish that says, "Prawdziwych przyjaciół poznaje się w biedzie," and the best English equivalent is, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." So I just wanted to say that we are so truly honored to have met these organizations and really humbled to get to know their work. I just wish it was under different circumstances. I see we also have people joining from Ukraine or with Ukrainian affiliations and emails, and that's really amazing. So I just wanted to say нашим українським друзям я хочу теж сказати, що я дуже рада, що ви сьогодні з нами. Я надіюся, що вам це буде придатно. I hope you find today's event useful and interesting, and I invite you to take part in the discussion. I hope it's an occasion to amplify the voices of grassroots organizations and the voices of researchers themselves. And finally, just to say, the event today is in English, but we will try to work on a summary report afterwards, which hopefully will be translated into Polish, Czech, Ukrainian, and watch this space, what else? Okay, enough from me. Our moderator for today is Max Ras from LSE Consulting. Max holds a PhD in social sciences, and he has extensive experience in research, but also policy analysis, planning, evaluation, and international development and public policy, and as well as lots of work with international organizations. So enjoy the event, and over to you, Max.
Hi, I'll say good evening, at least where I'm in Georgia at the moment, so it is late evening already, so good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much for the invitation to facilitate this. I maybe start with a little personal admission. I absolutely hate Zoom and panels on Zoom, so let's try to make the best of this. I think it's a particularly cruel format for something that we should be doing in the same room and over a more cordial chat. So what is it that we would like to propose is I would like to introduce briefly a formidable lineup of speakers that we have, but I'll do it briefly because a lot of them are wearing many academic and non-academic hats. So we'll also have an introduction to their profiles as part of our discussion. So as you know, we've gathered here today to look at the impact that Russia's invasion of Ukraine has had on the academic community and the role of the academic community in wartime and its very different roles. And how we're going to go about this, we have about an hour and 20 minutes, and we will try to go in three rounds. So we have 5 speakers. In the first round, we'll try to look at the impact that the war has had on our work over the last couple of months. So the first round will be statements and comments from all our panelists, and then we're going to take some questions. And the questions can be asked directly, and this is the format we would like to encourage most, which means that you can just put your hand up, and I will then unmute you, or you can unmute yourself if our gods of Zoom allow this functionality, and then you can just ask the question straight away. If you, for some reason you don't want to do this, or you don't have the technical provisions to do it, you can drop your question in the chat. I think Kasia has already introduced the multilingual character of this effort, so I think whatever language you want to ask the question in, we will definitely be able to cope with that. So don't worry about format and language. Just feel free to drop the question in the chat and we shall overcome. And then we're going to move to the second part of our discussion. We're going to look at the responses that mostly our institutional partners, governments and funders have provided so far, and how suitable they are to the circumstances, and maybe what else that they should be doing to support the academic community and the academics wherever they are in Europe, mostly obviously in Ukraine or the world. And then in the third part, we'll be looking at the role that we can play as individuals, as members of various civil society networks and research networks in this whole affair. And now, obviously, the questions are also cross-cutting, so we'll be hearing a little bit of everything in every round, but we will start with an assessment of what's been happening. And let me just introduce our 5 speakers. We have here Anna Grebinyk, who's a researcher at the Technical University of Applied Sciences in Wildau, in Germany, and a member of the Ukrainian Academic International Network. We have Ondřej Černotik, who's a researcher at the Palacký University in Olomouc in Czech Republic and member of CzechStats. We have Alina Frolova, who's a researcher at the Institute of Molecular Biology and Genetics and the Kyiv Academic University in Ukraine. We have Anna Kłos, who's a member of the Polish Young Academy at the Polish Academy of Sciences. And then we have Sasha Ivashchenko, who is a researcher at Leiden Medical Center and a member of Science for Ukraine. So if I maybe ask in this order, if I ask Anna to give us her take on the impact the war has had on her work, and then we'll move along the list of speakers that we have. Anna, over to you.
Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you. While I am sharing my screen, let me express my gratitude to the team of organizers and to Max to supervising us now. So, do you see my presentation in full screen mode? Yeah, super. So I'm Anna. I work as a researcher in nanomedicine. So I studied in Kyiv National Taras Shevchenko University. I graduated Master of Biochemistry there, and after that I transferred my research to the Technical University of Applied Sciences Wildau, that is next to Berlin. Since then I'm working here on the cancer nanomedicine development. So it's enough of me, and today I would like to focus more on our Ukrainian Academic International Network, where I am a member from its establishment, and commonly I am participating in the working group of communication, and since recently I'm leading the task force Stand with Ukraine. So Ukrainian Academic International Network, or as we call it, Ukraine Network, or UKRAINET shortly, gathered similarly minded people in 2015, in more locally in Germany, but also internationally, around the main goals of fostering academic cooperation with Ukraine, improving knowledge about Ukraine, increasing visibility of Ukrainian scientists, supporting career development of our members, and supporting reforms in Ukrainian science. It's an informal network with a linked group, and from the very beginning we decided to focus on Germany, as a core group was located here. So in 2016, on July 11th, the German-Ukrainian Academic Society was funded in Berlin to support the goals of UKRAINET here in Germany and from Germany. For now, we are 80 members that are distributed all over Germany, but also some in Ukraine and worldwide. The expertise of our members are evenly distributed along different fields of sciences, as can be seen here. And over 60 members of our society is PhD level researchers and managers. And more than half of it are professors and research group leaders. So it's quite brief overview of who we are. And here, what we do, the German-Ukrainian Academic Society focuses on the informational, building informational resource. So we run a dedicated web page supporting all before mentioned goals. And we have also a linked group, and we prepare and distribute newsletters. Please subscribe, check group. And also we foster the organization of scientific events, such as recently the deadline was closed for the PhD contests, and we also organize a summer school in Ukraine, conferences and webinars. And just briefly note on our recent initiative on a webinar series that focuses to provide the information on international science landscape, like a first orientation and useful tips for displaced Ukrainian scientists. The first one was on Germany, but also is recorded. So if you need to check it on our web page, please. And there would be Nordic countries is planned for the next 2 months. So this is it, how changed our activities since the beginning of war. I would like to highlight that because we were quite established society before with running a network and communication channels, we could adjust it to the new needs pretty fast. And from the first days of war, we dedicate new informational web pages to provide information on news and related developments in Ukraine and support for Ukrainian students and researchers in Germany and abroad as well, worldwide. We also gather important information concerning appeals, published publications, and further information how Ukrainians can orientate themselves in European scientific community and how others can help to Ukrainian. Also, one other important task which is realized by our members is lobbying. As our members were approached by some research fundings in Germany for consultation and planning and adjusting new funding schemes to the needs of Ukrainian scientists. So our members are now significantly involved in this lobby work with preparation different German-Ukrainian bilateral calls with Federal Ministry of Education and Research, BMBF German ministry, and also for other German fundings. Yeah, so this is it. I hope I coped with the given time.
It was great. Thank you very much, and very informative. So, I mean, we just for you, if some of you that are listening in, first of all, you know, we are recording this, but also if you want access to the materials and presentations later, we're also very happy to share this. So don't worry if you've not taken note of everything just now. And if I can pass the floor to Andrzej, and then he can tell us about his work.
Yeah, thank you, Max. Before I start talking about myself and the work we do with CzechSpats, I'd also like to thank Kasia for putting this wonderful event together. As Max said, I'm Andrzej. I'm a postdoc at the Palacký University in Olomouc in the Czech Republic, where I work on theoretical quantum optics, but that's probably not so important and relevant today. Here I am mainly as a representative of CzechSpats in Science, which is a volunteer organization which until very recently had essentially a single goal, and that was connecting Czech researchers living abroad with each other, and also with students and researchers and institutions in the Czech Republic. And the goal which we want to accomplish for this is using all the experiences that Czech scientists gain abroad to improve Czech academia. All this essentially changed on the 24th of February with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when we decided very quickly and very unanimously that we don't want to stand by and just watch. So if I remember correctly, the same evening we released a statement condemning this invasion. We reached out to UKRAINET, with whom we've been in contact previously, to offer our support, and we did set up an email address on which people who need help or want support or any kind of information can reach us. So that email address is ukraine@czechspats.org. So if anyone here wants to reach out after this event, feel free to do so. After all this very much spontaneous action, we started getting first emails from Ukrainian scientists fleeing the war and asking for help finding jobs in the Czech Republic, with which we helped very gladly, and which quickly grew to be one of the biggest activities for CzechSpats for some time. Until now, I think that already over 100 researchers contacted us asking for help, and I'm happy to report that 30 or 35 of those have been able to find help and find jobs. Most of those in the Czech Republic, some of them also in other countries, and there's still many more we are in contact with at the moment and whom we are trying to help. The other types of activities which we slowly started to introduce, which I think we'll have time to talk about a bit more, are activities aimed at integrating these scientists into the Czech academic environment. We started a buddy program for them, and we are planning in-person meetups where they can meet with each other and also with other Ukrainian scientists who've lived in the Czech Republic for since before the war, and where they can also meet with Czech scientists who also want to help integrate them into the academic world that we have. So I don't want to talk too long, but I'll just mention briefly. As I said, for a while, all these activities pretty much took over for us at CzechSpats, but we've been lucky to secure funding from the Bakala Foundation, which allowed us to secure a part-time position of a coordinator of this help. So now we are slowly moving back to our normal activities with a little bit of help to Ukrainian scientists on the side. So that's all from me for now.
Great, thank you very much, Andrei. I just noted that Kasia has been busy dropping those links in the chat. So, not only will be sharing the presentations used here, but there's also links in the chat. So if you want to record that, and there's one for CzechSpats as well. So thank you very much for this. Alina, over to you now, if you can have your input. Can you hear us? I can't hear you very well. I don't know if it's just me, but no. That is sounding very, very distant. As if you were, very, very far away from us.
Is it better now?
Yeah, much better now. Yes.
Great.
Yes, great.
Sorry,
yeah, cool.
It's this automatic microphones adjustment, and sometimes when it's too not loud, it starts to behave wrongly. So I'm researcher from Ukraine, and I would like to thank Polonium Foundation for organizing this amazing event, and thank you, Kasia and Max, for hosting this. So I'm doing bioinformatics and systems biology in the Institute of Molecular Biology and Genetics in Kyiv, Ukraine, and it's one of the top research institutions in this field. I'm also affiliated with Kyiv Academic University, which was established quite recently to actually bridge the gap between higher education and research from one hand and research in the industry from the other hand. I'm also a part of the initiative which I would like to promote here. It's called UA Science Reload. It's a group of scientists that focus on developing strategies for short, mid, and long-term strategies, how to actually support and reinvent science in Ukraine. We started it after the war. obviously because we wanted to formulate how we see what should be done now and later for Ukrainian science. I am personally focused on remote opportunities because some of you might already know that lots of scientists cannot leave Ukraine. I'm doing this together with my colleague Nika Romero. She's also from Ukraine originally, but she's doing research now in Utah University in the US, and we are doing it with the help of several international organizations such as Metasub Consortium and Metasub Europe Society we established recently for this purpose also as well. And I can talk for hours actually about problems of science in Ukraine because I spent the most difficult period of the first months of invasion in Kyiv. So I know for sure what was happening because I was seeing it with my own eyes. And just to briefly name maybe several problems we can develop later in this event, we have now first of all, we lost access to the grants we applied for. We were notified that the evaluation haven't even started and they plan to do it only after martial law will be finished. So we were unable to ensure the safety of our students. Obviously, we were unable to ensure our own safety. And I'm still lucky we are getting salaries, but I know some of my other colleagues, they were asked to go to unpaid vacations because there is no money in the budget to pay salaries for them. And unfortunately, we had to stop teaching for some time, and it was quite a sad event for us because we started new department, like Institute of Molecular Biology started new department in Kyiv Academic University, and we are teaching systems biology. And only now, after more than 3 months, we are slowly starting to regain activity and trying to engage students. And unfortunately, none of my students who I supervise cannot leave Ukraine because I have only one female student, but she cannot leave because she doesn't want to leave family, and the others are male. So it's quite a tough situation. And I would like everyone to understand how it's going on inside Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. Now we will have Anna. Anna, if you're here, Anna Kłos, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot to Kasia and to Max for hosting this event. So my name is Anna Kłos. I am a researcher and also the associate professor at the Military University of Technology in Warsaw in Poland. My main research work is being a geodesist, and I am working on creating reference frames for the Earth. I am also a member of the Polish Young Academy of the Polish Academy of Sciences since January 1st, 2022. So the Polish Young Academy, I am not sure if everyone is familiar with, so it consists of researchers that represent various disciplines. And the researchers are selected from among various Polish centers by the Polish Academy of Sciences. So we basically began our help for Ukrainian scientists as soon as the war began. So we spread the information that we are willing to help through the social media of ours, so through the Facebook, the Twitter, and we also posted the announcement on our website. At the same time, we also announced at our website that we are collecting hosts from Poland who are willing to host the scientist. So the hosts submitted their applications, so they were basically willing to host someone to hire them, or they offered the accommodation and they just offered also the place to work for free. So these were free ways the Polish scientists were willing to help with. So the response from both sides, so from the Ukrainian scientists who need help and also from the Polish scientists who want to host some people was enormous. So we basically our help was a kind of direct help. So we treated each person a very personally. So basically, the scientists contacted us while they were still in Ukraine. So they asked us to help to find the work, but also to help to find the accommodation and to help to find transportation from the border to the place they will be hosted. A total of 113 people contacted us from February 25th up to March 9th. For all of them, we tried to find a potential host from among the people who reported to us, but also using our own connections. We monitored the status of Ukrainian scientists, reporting them on an ongoing basis where they were, who they were going with, and what do they basically need. Personal contact with the person was definitely what the people needed. So they needed to know that there is someone somewhere who waits for them, and also someone who wants to hear from them. Researchers connected to hosts and who basically found their work received tremendous administrative support at the universities. And I would also like to emphasize that the actions which were taken by the Polish institutions was amazing, and the willingness to accept the scientists from Ukraine was also immense. Our help was driven by our own strength, so we basically often sacrificed the professional duties we had and also our family lives. We finished our individual action on March 11, and we started to cooperate on the date with Science for Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If we now move over to the Netherlands. Sasha, are you with us?
Yes.
Yep, go on.
Yeah, I will try. I hope I will be able. I'm very sloppy with Zoom, so I hope I will share the right thing. I think you can see my presentation, yeah? Can you see the presentation? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can, all good.
Okay. So my name is Sasha. Similar to Anna Grebinyk, I'm Ukrainian. I studied at the Ivashchenko National University of Kyiv. Afterwards, moved to the Netherlands to perform a PhD. And I'm in this call, I'm representing an organization called Science for Ukraine. I was invited to participate, and yeah, the circumstances are terrible, but it's amazing to see so many people coming together. Unlike some organizations in the call, Science for Ukraine was created as a reaction to the start of the war in Ukraine. The person that initiated the platform is Seumenicht from Latvia. On the second day of the war, she announced that they would be able to dedicate a part of the ongoing funding to host Ukrainian scientists whose work was terminated as a result of the war. And already on the second day, there was created a Twitter account. Afterward was a website, and the organization started growing from 1 volunteer to 4, and now we have more than 100 volunteers. We actually just evaluated, so at the top, at the peak, we had 157 volunteers. And the main mission of the organization is to help Ukrainian scientists and students find support opportunities and find information that is highly scattered. So this is our website. I will also post it in the chat, and there are other people from the from Science for Ukraine. So if I don't do it, I'm sure they will add a link. What Science for Ukraine does, our mission is to collect and disseminate information about support opportunities. So we collect this information and provide it on the website. That at the moment you see a screenshot, and we try to organize them. So we collect information worldwide. We have Twitter account, we have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Telegram, where we are also updating followers about it. The information is summarized as a database. So if you go for research position tab, you will be able to find information about offers or positions that were exclusively created for Ukrainian scientists or general ongoing support opportunities where Ukrainian applicants will be highly prioritized. We also, so these are the missions. So the first one I mentioned, it's collection and dissemination of the information. We are also trying to provide limited support. People, students and scientists that are struggling in finding suitable support opportunities, that can contact us. We have centralized communication channels via emails, so general emails, and for larger countries, country-specific emails that they can always contact, and we're trying to provide to answer them as fast as possible. The same applies to universities for ongoing calls, similar to that call that was mentioned by Anna. For universities that do not have partners but want to partner with universities, we are trying to find suitable partners. At the moment, we have representatives in 30 countries. As I mentioned, the organization have grown, and we are very, very grateful. No one expected that it will change so much, and we are very grateful to everyone who is contributing their time and helping to sustain. In general, the offers that we have and can be divided into 3 major parts. So in the first phase, the first few weeks, the short-term support opportunities were very popular. What we mean by short-term, that's something that is available instantaneously for a few weeks to a few months, so up to 3 months. And nowadays, we collect information that we have, and we try to communicate it to universities, kind of trying to help them understand what kind of support is needed. So the short-term changed, and nowadays the main shift moves a bit more towards midterm that can be characterized as a few months to several years. And another important aspect that was already mentioned, the fact that the vast majority of Ukrainian scientists cannot leave Ukraine. 55% are men, and there are a lot of female scientists that will not leave. So also back in early April, we started a campaign trying to pitch for remote opportunities, and trying to even late March, and trying to stimulate and open that, stimulate funding agency to also to activate their resources, and trying to raise awareness about the appropriate ways of supporting Ukrainian scientific communities and scientists. And every month we're trying to focus on another issue. For example, in April and March, a bit later, there were a lot of general funding calls where at the moment there is a centralized call in Ireland for all scientists that are funded by the National Science Council or ERC for Ukraine, and we are trying to motivate their grant holders to step forward and register their opportunities on the website so that it will become easier for Ukrainian scientists to find them. So in short, that's what science, I think I stopped sharing. In short, that's what Science for Ukraine does. If you have, I'm posting the website. So the website is in the chat. I hope that everyone can see that. If you have any questions, please always feel free to contact us, and I'm sure that we will discuss it in more details later in the panel.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Thank you to all the other panelists for introducing the realities and the impact that the war has had. And you've covered a broad range of issues, you know, from kind of research to cooperation networks and what your organizations are doing. I'm wondering if we have any questions from our audience. Now we have, what is it? We have here nearly 40 of us in the room now. Are there any questions? You can either drop them in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can pass the floor to you. We have a few minutes for questions before we move to the second part, which we'll try to look at what are the responses, especially at the institutional level. What are the funders, the governments, the international organizations doing, or maybe also not doing, and what else should be done to support academics in Ukraine and working with Ukraine more. Do we have any questions from the floor? I don't see any hands up. If Zoom is not your natural environment, you can just unmute yourself and tell us what your question is. Don't worry if you can't find the right button, or drop the question in the chat. If we don't have any questions, we'll have two more opportunities for that. So we're going to have now a round of comments from our panelists about what are the institutional responses, what is being done and what is not being done, what else and what should be done to help academics. So if you don't have questions, I'll maybe ask our panelists to move, and we'll be moving in the same order. So we have Anna, Andrzej, Alina, Anna, and Sasha. Are the responses? What are the funders, organizations, governments doing, and what is it that they're not doing, should be doing more of? Anna, if I pass the floor to you. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So I would speak from German side, presenting the German fundings. So mainly a German scholarly community has reacted promptly and positioned itself quite strictly from the first day of war. So on the 24th of February, the German Rector Conference, it's an umbrella for other fundings and research organization in Germany, issued the statement on solidarity on Ukraine. And on the next day, on the 25th of February, Alliance of Science organization in Germany recommended to freeze all cooperation in science, research and education with Russia. And in the following days, a research funding organization as well as individual universities and institutes followed this recommendation and froze the cooperation with Russian partners, both in research and education activities. Concerning funding opportunities, also from the beginning of war, the German, mainly the Federal Ministry of Education and Research was setting the work frame to provide support to Ukrainian scientists and students fleeing the war. So firstly, such support was focused on individual programs. For example, Humboldt and Volkswagen Foundation had already in March and April running calls for individual to support individual stays for 1 and 2 years in Germany at German host for Ukrainian researchers who already or were going to flee Ukraine. The Humboldt Foundation is also setting the next call in the frame of Marie Skłodowska actions. Concerning the support in a broader scope, not just individual, now is the DAD, it's the German Academic Exchange Service. established a platform which is named National Academic Contact Point for Ukraine to offer the information for Ukrainians and to provide the overview of German research system and funding opportunities, as well as to disseminate the individual offers of academic institutions. And in the end of May, they announced a call, a big program, Ukraine Digital, which is focusing on fast implementation of virtual education, virtual online courses via German partner for Ukrainian university. So it's a direct support of online education in Ukraine. And the deadline was extended just now until 20th of June. There's also next called Digital Campus, which supports more individually the preparation and implementation of online teaching courses, also on topic specific and language. The DFG, German Research Foundation, are also modifying now the existing programs to aim to support Ukrainians in Ukraine. And there are further options of co-funding from the such Leibniz and Helmholtz associations. And of course, there are countless individual offers of researchers to host Ukrainian students and scientists, which are listed mainly on Science for Ukraine. And so, like, generally, I would like to highlight that, like, immediate response was first to address humanitarian needs of Ukrainian researchers and students fleeing the war, and was also focused on more individual programs, but as it can also affect significantly the situation of Ukrainian science and foster brain drain. The programs are also recently focusing on how to help Ukrainian science in Ukraine with the infrastructural funds and supporting education there. What further could be done? It's such a broad question. Mainly, we would like to encourage Western potential hosts to consider not just full-time position, but also part-time positions for remote paid work for Ukrainian scientists. And to do this, to enable them to work from Ukrainian university. Also, it would be very helpful to provide guest status to the Western universities for Ukrainians, to provide them with access to the libraries, databases, courses for work, as well as for further educational and professional development. So, for example, some people now could not promptly refocus on new work or research. They could use this time to advance their knowledge on transferable skills that could be done online. Also, the organization of invited talks, webinars, joint conferences with possible funding for participants from Ukraine with some honoraries would be already very helpful. Ukrainian scientists could be also invited to existing project and with them the Western partners could develop new grant application during existing and new coming funding schemes from the German and European fundings. Also, it would be very important to focus on education and to develop joint master PhD programs to support the master and PhD education in Ukraine. Also here, very important aspect is that Ukraine was advancing in the attracting international students. So before war, there was around 80,000 international students in Ukraine, and evidently that is affected dramatically. It would be dropped. So the joint programs could help to attract to new students. So, and one last option from many, I would like to underline that there are also options to donate of used laboratory equipment. Before war, there was new regulation in Ukraine that there was so the donated lab equipment would require no taxes, so it's tax-free for so the used lab equipment could be very helpful to rebuild infrastructure in Ukraine, and for such long-term goals, very important to think already now how to rebuild Ukrainian science in Ukraine. For that, new programs or already existing could be applied, like return fellowship and programs for people which who fled Ukraine now, but after could consider to come back, and for that the from Humboldt and ERA Foundation such schemes. So for Ukrainian scientists it could be adapted and developed further, and yeah, mainly then the infrastructural strategic funding aimed on Ukrainian universities would be highly appreciated.
Great. Thank you very much, Anna. Again, if you've got any questions in the meantime, please feel free to add them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to pass the floor to Andrzej to give us his take and reactions.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, I think, because I'd otherwise repeat a lot of what Anna just said. So the Czech response was also very quick and supportive, I'd say. Universities very quickly started offering stipends for students or fellowships for researchers. Funders also quickly modify their funding schemes to make it easier to hire Ukrainian scientists on running projects, which is nice. There's also a lot of private foundations which offer financial support for students and researchers. The government is also trying to help, mainly by making the paperwork needed to hire people from the Ukraine a bit easier, and providing centralized hubs where all relevant information on things like visa, health, and social insurance, but also funding and job opportunities can be found. So that's all good. One thing which could certainly be improved is support for Ukrainian scientists who had to stay in Ukraine by providing remote work opportunities or financial support for their institutions. That's something that for Czech universities or the Academy of Sciences is fairly difficult to do with the current legal framework which we have. So that is one thing where the government would really have to step in. So I think that's all I wanted to say on this.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this. And I mean, again, I appreciate if some things already covered by your colleagues. There is no need to repeat that. But I guess Alina could be offering us a Ukrainian perspective and what the things look like from working within Ukraine. So Alina, if I can pass the floor to you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Okay, all good. Not anymore. Alina, are you with us? Because I think that your microphone is now muted. So if we don't hear you, then I'm going to pass the floor to Anna.
Can you hear me
yeah.
now?
Yes,
Sorry.
all good. Yes,
it was
you're
unstable
back.
connection. So I can separate this question into kind of two parts, like what I see from Ukrainian side, from Ukrainian government, and from international organizations. As I said already, unfortunately, many grants got frozen, so we don't expect to get money from internal grants anytime soon, at least. I'm not sure whether anything can be done with that in a short-term perspective, because government is spending money elsewhere now. But there are good initiatives as well, such as Global University, for example. It's supported by government, and they try to establish connections between universities in other countries and Ukrainian universities, because not everything can be solved on the level of huge grant bodies. Because you can establish like individual connections between labs, so in Ukraine and elsewhere, between university and then on some even higher level. So Global University tries to fill that niche also. And in general, what is nice, we are quite flexible. If you are internally displaced, you're at least not getting fired, which is nice. But I think currently most of Ukrainian scientists, they try to find help outside of Ukraine. And this was already said many times, that we need more remote opportunities, but it can be done also in many different ways. What I see now, there are parts of Ukrainian scientists who are less protected than others. For example, I talked to my colleague, and she is doing pure mathematics, is very theoretical field. And when she applies for grants that are not limited by a specific field, let's say it's natural sciences, and you can apply with biology, physics, any kind of field, she is at disadvantage, because it's harder to present it, harder to sell this scientific idea, because modern science, modern grant writing is slightly about, I don't know, many interdisciplinary fields and so on. So I see that, but we still have this strong school in Ukraine of theoretical sciences, and I see those people struggle a little bit to find position. And then another part of Ukrainian scientists who would benefit from some adjusted grant programs are actually students, bachelor and masters. I mean, the ones who cannot leave, because they are super unexperienced, but I understand there are online courses and we have access to Coursera, edX and so on, but it's not the same. What I'm trying to do now is to find, for example, a friendly lab somewhere and to establish a communication in terms of writing a joint master thesis or a bachelor thesis, something like this. And then, for example, if we see that martial law will be sometime lifted, we can send this student. So we don't even have to wait for this digital fellowship or maybe virtual mobility. We want to establish connection now, and as soon as we see this possibility, we apply for something. Also, I wanted to share a very particular example. Maybe some of you already saw that the European Commission officially launched this 25 million euros direct aid package for Marie Skłodowska-Curie grants, and there is a very interesting phrase there that researchers will also be allowed to use the money to re-establish themselves in Ukraine. And they haven't formulated the exact program yet, but I'm really super interested in whether they really make it possible to use part of the funds in Ukraine, because this is, for now, this is the only grant I see that says this explicitly. So I hope it's not that they just think that you will acquire experience and come back to Ukraine and establish science, because you basically have no money, you have destroyed infrastructure. I'm still happy my institute exists, but some people from Kharkiv, they no longer have buildings, like physically. So I would see more grants such as digital fellowships, virtual mobility, and grants that would allow you to partially spend funds for research in Europe, for example, in somewhere in the hosting institution. And then as the second part of this grant, you would go to Ukraine and re-establish the same research direction in Ukrainian institution.
Sorry, are you finished? I'm just not sure whether this is another audio problem. Or... Okay,
yeah, I can continue, but I think I should.
I think that's a good overview. Let's pass the floor on to Anna, and then we might have time for other comments later. Thank you very much. Anna, over to you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So I would like to give you a brief outlook on how it looks here in Poland. So basically, I don't want to repeat the things which has been already said by previous speakers. So basically, the support for Ukrainian scientists was offered here in Poland by several Polish institutions. So at the beginning, the National Science Center offered that the scientists who are granted with their grants can spend some money for the work of the Ukrainian scientists. So they just move the money between different positions, and they just can give it for the work to the Ukrainian scientists. Then other Polish institutions did the same. So I would like to mention here the Foundation for Polish Science, the Polish Academy of Sciences, the Collegium Invisible with its FLEG project, and also the Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange. So the money is being paid now to Ukrainian scientists in a form of a scholarship. So Ukrainian scientists work within a specific project and they are paid for it. But also some institutions are beginning to help in other kind of helps. So they help to write the cover letters, or they are also organizing the workshops in a Polish language. So basically the help is being changed from the short term to the long term. So even the scientists begin to understand that the short-term help has been gone. So I mean, the scientists who needed the immediate help are here or somewhere else, and who is in need now are the scientists who are still in Ukraine and they need the long-term help. But also the ones who cannot find themselves in a completely different science stream that the Ukrainian one, right? So they need being showed how different science system works, but they also need to feel safe here, and also they need to know that they are worth of work here, right? So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. We're going to pass the floor to Sasha, and then we're going to open again for questions. So if you've got any questions going, please feel free to use the chat. So we'll be coming to the end of our panel shortly, so make sure that you use that time if you've got any questions left. Sasha, over to you.
Yeah, I will try to be very short and not repeat the rest. So just like Anna just said, what we also see at Science for Ukraine, at first there was initial shock. So people were really coming and immediately looking for support. And the type of the students and the scientists that are contacting us now, it's a planned relocation. And they really need, they're looking for positions. They are considering whether to relocate to a safer area in Ukraine or go abroad if they can support their children. Don't forget, the majority of people that go abroad, they are mothers with multiple children, and they will not dare to go abroad without knowing that they have means of supporting themselves, and definitely not for a month or two, because they don't know for how long they need to stay. So the types of support opportunities they more need guidance on where to go, how to apply, because there are opportunities and they need to know how to find them. So first of all, if you have opportunities, please do register them. Go on our website, register in it, because it's important to promote them. It's very difficult to find decentralized. Just posting positions on your university website is not enough, because there are many, many universities and scientists that are moving abroad now. Many of them, they do not have international experience. Those that did, they already found positions. Another aspect, so remote, I would just want to visualize, to show one figure from the article that we just to illustrate how big the problem with remote is. So what you see here is a plot of different listings on Science for Ukraine database. So the yellow, that's the total number of listings that we have. So we have more than 2,000 groups are currently being registered in the database. And the blue graph that you see, that daily submissions, the weekly submissions. So the peak was, the response from PIs especially was remarkable. In the first, many scientists internationally, they dedicated parts of their personal grants, group grants, institutional grants, and opened positions. So you see there was a huge peak in March, and then it started going down. And the reason why it's going down, because personal grants, yeah, they are depleted. So what is needed now is an institutional support, additional impulses from funding. And what you see in red are the total remote listings that we have. While there are more than 2,000 groups registered, there are a bit more than 100 remote positions. At the same time, about 75% of scientists are in Ukraine. So the unbalance is remarkable, and the same applies for students, what was already mentioned before. So what is needed are the academic transfer, the way for students to continue their education. What was mentioned before, Coursera is not a university education. Ways of getting practical skills. Students can follow online lectures, but they're not getting practical skills. How can a chemist become a chemist by following courses online? Those are the aspects that we need to cover. And of course, remote and consideration of long-term rebuilding. I cannot stress it more.
Thank you very much. We have, maybe just moving swiftly to questions and comments, we have one sort of practical question, sharing the screenshot of the graph on Twitter. That was to you, Sasha. Are you okay for this to be published?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So Maciej, that's the answer to you. And then we have another question from Kasia Kołotowska. Let me just scroll up to it. Was left on our chat, which was about the sort of the matching process between scientists, in this case in Sweden. So it's a typically Swedish problem I see here, being placed in Sweden, where a lot of generous funding has been opened to help scientists in Ukraine. I mean, we don't all suffer with those sort of issues, but you know, that's what Kasia is saying here. It appears it's not easy to find people interested in joining labs here. What would be your advice? That's a question to our panelists, for a lab based in Sweden who would like to help a scientist and host them in their lab, how to go about this? And I have to add that Kasia is in developmental biology and vascular biology. If anybody here has any comment on any of those domains and how to and where to find partners in Ukraine to identify scientists to be hosted in Sweden, then if any of our panelists would like to comment or suggest a resource, maybe not a direct answer, but you know, what's the best place to look? Sorry, Sasha, is that, yeah?
Yeah, so I mentioned to her first, I don't know what I was trying to say. If there is a possibility, first, please register it in a database and share information that we can promote on social media. Also, if you have PIs that are interested, if it's needed, just specify, email us and say that you are looking for partners. We will share it with Ukrainian Global University, and other partners in Ukraine will try to find a match. So just understand that posting support on the university website is not enough. Also, although it might sound like very specific field, might never find a match. That's something that needs to be understood. Not every single listing, especially a very specific one, will have a match in Ukraine, because the type of science, it depends per field, but some certain disciplines that are prioritized in Europe were not prioritized in Ukraine. So there is a bit of disbalance, and it's important to stay a bit more open in that sense.
Great, thank you very much. Alina, I don't know if you wanted to offer an answer as well or a comment. Well, we have got the audio problem, so try to maybe whatever you did to reset the microphone. Yeah, you're on. Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I agree that you should register in Science for Ukraine. It's a very great resource, but I wanted to touch a slightly different issue here, to give you some tips of how you can maybe formulate your offer better so that people will be more attracted. Because at least for Ukrainians, Sweden is quite expensive country, and many people are scared that if they go there, even with some kind of scholarship, fellowship grant, they will be struggling, especially if they come with the family. And you should take into account that many people will still have some property in Ukraine, and they must continue paying all the bills, because they cannot just sell and go somewhere. So they will have still additional cost, and maybe they will have to support a family member who cannot leave Ukraine. So if you can formulate precisely that, for example, you will get this amount of money, you will spend this on accommodation, you will get enough for staying, we will help you with all the steps, with all the process, people will be more willing to apply. Because sometimes I even need to force some of my colleagues to try to first write to the lab, to the institute, and ask all this question, because they see a country, it's not only with this particular country. That's why I will tell you the truth, Poland is so popular, because people want to go there because they know they will be able to live there more or less comfortably, because they understand better maybe how it works in Poland. So be more specific when you write about your position, because you think of it how usually people think of it as normal regular positions where people have time to study, to understand how things work in particular country, but here people don't have time or don't have mental capacity. So be as specific as possible.
That's great. Thank you, Andrzej. You've got your hand up, so maybe you want to offer a comment or a response.
Yeah, I just want to add one point, which would be to curb your expectations a little bit. As we've heard other people say, the biggest wave of refugees from Ukraine is probably, hopefully, over, and the vast majority of researchers is still staying in Ukraine, and many of those don't have a chance to leave. So it's of course great that you want to help, and but it might just be that no one will need the particular kind of help that you that you can offer. So just make sure that the position is known. If someone contacts you, that's great, but if no one asks about the details, that's fine as well.
Okay, thanks for this, Andrzej. I was wondering whether any of the panelists would like to comment. Just be mindful of the time. We have maybe time for one or two questions, and then I think Larissa had the possible input about the activities of the foundation. So I'm wondering, yeah, any last-minute questions? No. So then we have the well, an input, Larissa, if you're there. Time for maybe a quick announcement from the Fundacja Nauki Polskiej. Yeah, over to you. Sorry, it's getting dark here. I'm just going to switch a light on, but I'm still here.
Yeah. Hello, but I can't to open my video.
Okay. Is it okay? Can I ask Vanessa? Vanessa, you are our Zoom
Maybe it's from
magician. You. So just to make sure, yeah, that Larissa can, yeah, okay, we can see you now, and then also that Larissa can. Would you like to share your screen? Would you like to present something on slides?
No.
Or?
Any presentation?
Okay, just fine.
Because, I would like thank you for time and attention. I would like to say only shortly about this program that our foundation reacted to invasion shortly as soon as possible, as a lot of your initiative. So in March, the first edition of our program was opened, and the idea is to combine projects from Polish side and Ukrainian side, and the conditions of application is very simple, and now we have got 67 projects, and we need experts more than we expected, especially in economics and business, political science, and law, and psychology and education. And now we are seeking such experts, and more important, that idea of our bosses is that experts should be outside from Ukraine and Poland, because you understand me, yes? So it will be great then they can read in Polish and in Ukrainian, because some publications could be in original languages, but of course some projects and the steps of disseminations and some other short documents in English, of course. So that's our actual ask for you. Maybe you have colleagues, maybe you have friends. Our expectations to experts is not so high, so it can be young scientists, it can be a doctor, a PhD, it can be a professor with a good experience. So the most important that such experts should be out of Poland and out of Ukraine. We have at least lots of experts for example, for history, for social, for psychology, for literature, languages, communication, but not above named specialty. So, so if you can help us, it will be great, because we want to finish this step and to open the next edition of these competitions. And lots of our applicants ask every day, when? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Larissa. We have an immediate reply here from Anna. Anna, if you want to add anything, but obviously there is the same advice we just was shared before, which was if you can email UKRAINET and then they will register that and share it further, that would be great. I know there's already some circulation between Poland and Ukraine, so probably it's not the only platform or the first one you'll be using, but a suggestion there for you to add this. There was a question here from Kasia. Then when you say that they have to be out of Poland, out of Ukraine, so mean that they have to be based in other countries? Is that the point, that the candidates or participants in the scheme have to be based in third countries?
If you question to me, yeah, is from other countries.
But what if they are, let's say, Ukraine? I mean, if they are Ukrainian scientists currently in Poland, would they not be eligible for that? They have to be elsewhere to be part of that, or how does that work?
Once more, do you mean about applicants or about experts? Once more.
So maybe you can explain the difference in the categories. So basically, to what extent does location matter?
Okay, now we need experts, and they should be out of Poland and out of Ukraine. But the more idea they can read in Polish and in Ukraine, because some publications of our applicants can be in original languages. Okay.
Fine. Yeah, sure. So you need, the experts have to be based elsewhere, but they have to be able to read that. Okay, thank you. Now, do we have any more questions? Because we're coming to the end of our assigned time. So wondering if there are any, also looking at, Larissa, what you did was very helpful. If anybody here has any further queries along the same, you're looking for a contact or you're offering a place, now would be a good time to share this. So it's not only questions, there's also comments or contributions to colleagues about any aspect of cooperation with Ukraine or around Ukraine. Anyone here? Okay, so yeah, sorry, Anna, if you want to take the floor.
Yeah, if there are no further questions, I would like to briefly share with you one further important point I consider to be very important to discuss it also not only on national but international scientific community as we gathered right now, that the target group of the fundings and supports should be defined very clearly. For now, there are quite a number of support schemes which are supporting Ukrainian refugee scientists in one line, Russian and Belarusian scientists. And in my personal opinion, it's insensitive because we cannot put in one line Ukrainian researchers which now are actually dying or fleeing the war, and in one line with the researchers who experienced now the lack of academic freedom. So they're actually suffering from their own regime. as academic freedom is quite a common topic before Russian war in Ukraine, there are special funding for that. Who is interested to support Russian and Belarusian scientists could use those specifically dedicated to foster freedom in academia fundings, and not propose the fundings equally to Ukrainian refugee scientists and Russian and Belarusian scientists. And to put a face to Ukrainian researchers, I would like just briefly to introduce Professor Vasil Kladko, who was killed when he was rescuing his family. And yeah, so I would like to raise this, from my opinion, personal opinion, very important point in organization of support to Ukrainian students and scientists. And just briefly, to coming back to German funding opportunities, they're actually now running call also from Max Planck, which is ending in 2 weeks. But for further information, please check our website or reach us. We can guide you.
Thank you very much for all the information, and also for sharing the late Professor Kladko's story. Thank you for bringing this in. Now, Alina, I guess you also have a comment to share?
Yeah, just few sentences. I would like to support what was just said, because I also find it extremely insensitive, and I know my colleagues, they just generally avoid such funding opportunities where it's said that Russian, Belarus and Ukrainian scientists will be supported. And I don't even understand how people who are proposing such grants, they then select candidates. How do they do it? How do they morally say that we will take 5 Russians, 5 Ukrainians? I don't know, because you cannot do it purely on scientific project, because this is the grant opportunity for scholars in BRICS. So you would consider 2 things. First, scientific question at the project, and the second, how much of the support a particular individual needs. And this, when it goes into the moral plane. And I think that they should be just separate. It's not that we are against supporting Russian or Belarus scientists, because they are also suffering. But I don't see that it should be as the same funding opportunity.
Thanks for that. Sasha, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it's to summarize the same topic, I just wanted to say, yes, there are many, it is very important to support academic freedom and everyone who is endangered. There are standard programs like Scholarship Risk that Belarusian and Russian scientists can apply to, that require clarification of, and the proofs is a small check of why scientists are in danger. But I just would like to give an example. There are some support opportunities that when they're open to Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Russian scientists at the same time, because of simple fact that many Ukrainian scientists are sitting in the bomb shelters and they do have mental capacity to apply. Majority, like these applications are getting overwhelming, like 80–90% of Russian, Belarusian applicants, and very small percentage of Ukrainian applicants, and as a result are being disproportionately filled compared to actual needs and necessities. It's very important to support everyone, but let's be realistic and just separate them based on the urgency and the risk factors.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more comments or questions. So if they're not there, then I'll just say, well, thank you very much, Anna, Andrzej, Alina, Anna, and Sasha for all the inputs. Thank you to our audience for not only asking questions, but also offering practical help and solutions and contributing to the discussion. And I'll pass the floor back to Kasia for some closing announcements. Kasia, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Max. And not much else left to me than to say thank you again for the super informative and useful discussions, and thank you to Max for the fantastic facilitation of what is not an easy subject to discuss today. Thank you for to everyone who's attended, and just to reassure you, I could see there was a lot going on in the chat, so once the recording is up, we will share the recording, and we will also try to do our best to share the links to all the resources and pointers that were made in the chat. Okay. If people in the panel, if the panelists, if you could stay behind 1 minute, but I think we are ready to wrap up. Thank you so much.